Happy Sunday, everybody. I hope you're having a fantastic weekend. Today, we're having a very more serious conversation about the real estate market. As you know, there's been California fires that have devastated many, many homes across the state. But they're not the only state that has been suffering several natural disasters that have cost the American taxpayers a lot of money, and of course, insurance companies a lot of money. It's a serious conversation that we need to have about insurance companies and what this actually means for the housing market. It's going to be a interesting road what happens from here on out, and I want to have a discussion with you. We have no article is specifically about this is just a conversation between me and you. I'm going to go on a bit of a rant when it comes to insurance companies because I don't have any love for them. I realize it's a business model and they need to make money, but I know what they've also done to many, many families. So hold on tight. Go ahead and listen to the very peppy intro, and then we're going to have a very serious conversation. Go ahead and roll it, Eddie.
Get ready. Kristina's live stream is about to start.
Tiny homes, big dreams, stacking up the cream. Modular escapes, not just what it seems. Lux in a box, making mad streams. Affordable palace fitting in the beams. Kristina on the stream, showing schemes to the team. Tiny living planes, soaring high supremes. Lux in a box, making mad streams. Affordable palace fitting in the beams.
And we're back. That was a very peppy intro to what we're talking about today. So, as you've seen on television, we have a lot of natural disasters happening. It just so happens that California is in the news this week. But last week, several weeks ago, it was about the tornadoes. Weeks before that, it was about flooding. Months before that was about torrential hurricanes that brought in even more flooding across North Carolina. One tragedy does not negate the other. Like everybody that has had these insurance problems, it's not because like all of a sudden one other state is getting more attention at this moment that we forget about the other states. It may feel that way because you don't see it on television, but there's still people going through these tragedies one right after another. Around my LA, the Rich and Judy show says, I live 10 miles from the Palestine's fire. 50% of the conversion here right now is the mess that's been created by insurance companies canceling these people after the last Malibu fire. And, if you think about it, think about all the people in Hawaii that went through all of this too, and their insurance companies and how they still haven't even been rebuilt. I know California is much like Hawaii in the fact that they have to keep a certain aesthetic in a certain area. And California is going to have a huge uphill battle when it comes to rebuilding because there is so many laws and policies. It happened here. Don't even say, I know that somebody's going to say out there, oh, it's because of the liberal, blah, blah, blah. Stop right there because I live in Louisiana. And when Katrina came through, I live in a very, very, very red state. And when Katrina came through, they have their own policies that made it very difficult for people to rebuild here. Even in 2016, we had a humongous flood, and it's a uphill battle to rebuild and bring it back to the way it was prior. It is not a 1-year process. It's not a 2-year process. It is a 3-year process if you're lucky. And when you're going through insurance companies and trying to work with FEMA, every single person that's had these kinds of tragedies knows it's like you're working a full-time job to get people on the phone, to get things done, whether that's permitting, whether that's insurance companies paying out, what insurance companies will pay out because they will try to offset it and say, well, we're not sure that this was caused by this, so you need to contact the flood insurance policy. And the flood insurance policy is like, no, this had nothing to do with us. So you're playing that game back and forth 1,000 times. We need to talk about what insurance companies do. There are the policies that have been put in place is a business model. It's, privatized where they make money and they make a lot of money. And what really grinding my gears was, Facebook is a cesspool. We all know that. Every time you see a post, it's just to enrage us. But let me share this Facebook post. Eddie, can you go ahead and put it on the screen for me, please? If you want me to, I'll do it. Okay, here it says. The irony of the NFL football moving to the Rams-Vikings playoff game to the State Farm Stadium in Arizona due to the Los Angeles fires just months after State Farm canceled 75,000 insurance policies for LA residents due to the fire risk is insane. Okay, so of course, there's going to be people that have to comment on this. This was in a real estate group. And I went ahead and blocked out this man's name because I don't want him to get any flack. But go ahead and put the comment that I saw, because this is what I want to comment on. He says State Farm didn't cancel the policies due to fire risk. They non-renewed the policies because the state of California won't allow them to raise the premiums enough adequately account for the statistically likelihood claims expenses of the fire risk. A lot of people are making State Farm to be out the villain, when in reality, they just made only the logical business decision based on the constraints created by politicians. Insurance companies are not a charity. They need to actually make money in order to continue to operate. I get what you're saying there, sir. Eddie, you can take it off. I get what you're saying there, sir. But why are insurance policies like this? Like, why do they have to make money? What is their operational costs that makes them have to make as much money as they do? That's what I can't wrap my head around it. Like, everybody wants to make money, right? But there shouldn't be at the cost of some family that has been paying for a policy with State Farm for the last 35 years, never filed a claim, and then all of a sudden get dropped out of nowhere. They never filed a claim, and now all of a sudden they're getting dropped. That happened all over Florida years ago. And I've talked about this before. At the time, the governor was Jeb Bush, and State Farm said, well, we're going to remove all of our homeowners insurance policies, but we're going to leave all of our other policies here because we find that Florida is too much of a high risk. And the governor said, well, sirs, if you want to go ahead and do that, go ahead and take all your other policies as well. And State Farm did a little backstroking, but in order to offset that, they made their insurance so incredibly high that most people didn't want it. My dad continued to keep State Farm for a long time until I told him, I'm like, you're not getting any better coverage because you're paying an extra $1,500 or $3,000 a year for your homeowners insurance. But he had that brand name in his head, so he kept staying with that company. It was like an act of Congress to twist his arm to finally change it. And then when he did, he was like, I don't know why I didn't do this sooner. I'm like, stubborn. It was stubborn. I get the calculated risk and the fact that there were policies put in place that didn't allow for them to raise premiums, but to blindside the homeowners, to not give them much of a choice in the fact that they're like, you know what? So what? Pull the plug. You're non-renewed at this point. They should have warned people well in advance that they were going to be going to do this. When our own policies here in Louisiana were doubled, we had absolutely no advance, none whatsoever. They went from this price to double the next year. Double. And it makes absolutely no sense to me. They know that hurricanes happen. And at that time, no hurricanes had even come through our area. They knew they're a risk assessment company. They have been calculating risk for years and years and years. Why is it that all of a sudden they're blindsided and they don't know, oh, well, we just didn't know it was going to cost this much. Well, that's your damn job. That is your damn job. And now it doesn't make any sense to me that you kept the premium so incredibly low for so long, and then all of a sudden you boosted them up. But on top of it, because you've made so much profit, you're able to give your CEO a what? How much bonus? $21.9 million bonus on top of his $24 million pay every year. And I know that is seems like pocket change to the billions of dollars in cost to replace things. But how long has that been going on? For how many years? And he's just the CEO. How many people below him got those kinds of bonuses? 5 million here. Everybody gets $1 million down here. This is a conglomerate that needs, just like many things, an enema. I mean, a deep enema. And we can't have people that have mortgages not have homeowners insurance. It's impossible. We've gotten to the point now that many people in many areas can't afford the homeowners insurance. It's happening down in New Orleans because their homeowners insurance is ridiculously high. People that have never flooded, have never filed a claim, all of a sudden are getting these insurance bills that used to be $2,000 a year that went to $4,000, then $6,000. Now they're $15,000 and they don't have that extra money. These are family homes that have been passed down from generations. And now, like, you're going to throw this on them? Like, what is going to happen? Like, I want to know what's going to happen. And I'm concerned. I'm very concerned for especially people that are my daughter's age. She wants to buy her first house. These kinds of things in the future are making her nervous. Like, she's 24 years old. Oh, I'm sorry, 22. She's 22 years old. And she is looking at this and saying, I don't know if I ever want to get a house because I'm afraid of what the homeowner's insurance is going to be. Like, these events are not going to change. They're not going to change. But we can change. Like, when they go to rebuild, instead of rebuilding with sticks and paper, rebuild with cement. You know, Florida's been doing it for years. Rebuild with not just stucco, where you throw the foam facade on it and then throw some stucco over the foam facade. I'm talking actual bricks, the actual cement bricks. Rebuild with that. That's true of here in Louisiana too. I don't understand. We live in a hurricane prone area with lots of flooding. Why houses are built on slabs here? Well, I will never understand. Everybody should be on piers. But for some reason along the way, because it used to be built this way, they decided that everything needs to be on a slab. Then everybody floods. If they were on piers, they wouldn't be. We need to revamp the way we do construction in anticipation of what could happen in the future, because it's not getting any better as far as weather is concerned. And these insurance companies, to mitigate the risk, should require people to do that. If that means you're going to have a smaller house to pay for what you got, then that's the case. But we got to do this so we don't continue to go down this road where we're constantly having to rebuild infrastructure. I'm just going to go on in one more rant. After Katrina, real estate in my small town outside of Baton Rouge became extremely expensive because people fleeing from the area that had been storm damage actually had no choice. They went ahead and got their checks from their insurance company. They went ahead and sold the house, sold the land as it is. They got their rebuild check and they went ahead and bought a house here. And real estate here became very expensive in comparison to what it had been. That's what's going to happen in California. At that time, even when we had the floods in 2016, if you had a vacant rental, overnight, agents would jacked up rents, and sellers jacked up rents in order to cash in on other people's tragedy, which is an absolutely disgusting thing to do. If there's a state of emergency in some states, not all states, they can get in trouble for that. The agents can get in trouble for that, and the sellers can get in trouble for that. So don't plan on doing that. Don't capitalize on people's despair just to make a buck. That's just freaking gross, and I think it's bad karma. The real estate market in all these areas that have been affected by storms recently, the rebuild process is going to be long, and it's going to cost a lot of money. The amount of homes that have been damaged in California and trying to get those rebuilt are going to make lumber prices go up everywhere. It's going to make the labor costs go up everywhere. It's going to make every building material you can think of become more expensive. And that is going to trickle down into other housing markets, whether it's California or not, because that's what happened during Katrina with drywall. Same thing. Drywall became the number one hottest commodity. And then they went cheap. And then we got that whole Chinese drywall problem. I just want everybody to be aware that whether it's insurance or not, I can't see the cost of building a home getting less expensive over the next few years, especially if we continue to have these kinds of natural disasters that happen. So with that, I would love to answer your questions. Anything you want to say about your insurance companies, I am open book because I want to talk to you about this. It has been weighing on my brain. I've seen it happen time and time again. Oh, one more thing. If you think the federal government does anything for us after a national tragedy, it's very small. You'll get your water, you'll get your MREs, and it's for a short period of time. FEMA does what they need to do at the first weeks of a natural disaster. And after that, one day, it's just like they're in a parking lot and the next day they're gone. And that is true. It doesn't matter what state you're in. It doesn't matter. It does not matter. All right. That's it. That's it. Lucky no hurricane named Kristina. I'm sure it's on the list. I'm sure it's on the list. Kristina, Katrina. Yep. Peter says, question. Did you know that companies stopped using GAAP accounting after the financial crisis? So the so-called record profits are EBITDA accounting. I don't know what that acronym means.
EBITDA.
What is EBITDA? I don't mean to be ignorant, but Eddie, can you look that up? I don't know what that means. Years ago, Eddie and I had a hurricane that came through our home. We were new homeowners. We had no idea. Everybody in my neighborhood was getting new roofs, and we had bought a house that had renters in it prior. We had our first home inspection. They said, your roof is fine. Then we had this hurricane that came through, and we called our insurance company and we said, we don't know what to do. I think we need to have somebody come out here to take a look at our roof to see if we need a new roof. State Farm at the time, this was State Farm, came out, took a look at the roof, and he's like, oh, no. Everything's fine. Everything's fine. You could go several more years. There's nothing wrong with it. Well, a couple months later, we decided to put our house on the market. And I thought we were fine because we just had State Farm out there. And the home inspector was like, this is a hot mess. There's not a lick of gravel on any of your shingles. And he took all these pictures, which, we didn't know. We were young. We had no idea. And we had to put a brand new roof. We ended up doing it ourselves because to go through the whole insurance claim would have cost us more time. And this guy wanted to close. So we ended up getting a whole new roof ourselves. But they lied to us. They lied to a young family has no idea about roofing, so they didn't have to pay out a claim. And those claims adjusters, I'm sure they'll never say this, but I'm sure that they're trained, and I could be wrong, but trained to say, no, you don't need a roof when you need one.
So EBITDA is actually basically your revenue after, but I'm going to show you exactly what it is. It's like earnings before taxes, interest, or short earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization. So it's basically the net income.
Go figure.
So also on insurance agents, if it is a contracted insurance agent or insurer adjuster, they're more likely, and the way they're paid is to write that insurance claim. If it's an in-house, State Farm is known for in-house, and I believe Allstate in some areas. And there's other insurance adjusters that are in-house. Obviously, their job is to save money. So I just want to put that out. I don't want to put the bad name for adjusters out there.
Well, our adjuster blew. Or if anybody doesn't know, that's my husband in the background. He is the producer that puts all the little articles on the screen for you. So that's why I was saying our adjuster was terrible. Our adjuster was terrible. Oh, I wanted to play this little video that I saw on TikTok today because I wanted to share this with you. That came through. So.
An investigation by the Senate Budget Committee finding that climate change-driven extreme weather events are leading to increasing non-renewal rates and spiking premiums across the country, particularly in Florida, Louisiana, and North Carolina. The report suggesting the insurance crisis could lead to a housing one with echoes of 2008, saying this is predicted to cascade into plunging property values in communities where insurance becomes impossible to find or prohibitively expensive. Climate change is no.
Okay, so with that being said, according to ABC, in that article, they're saying that because of the cost of insurance, home sellers are going to have to drop their price considerably because of the cost of home insurance. And some people are going to look at that as too much of a risk and not want to purchase in that area. I want to ask you guys, do you see a world in, let's just say 20, 30 years that people will no longer want to live in areas that are prone to hurricanes because of the fact of insurance? Or do you think that, I'm just gonna leave it there. Do you guys think that we're going to live in a world in 30 years that nobody's going to want to live in areas that are prone to hurricanes, fires, and natural disasters of any kind? Michael Williams says, taking advantage of someone else's misery is how capitalism works. Not doing that is un-American. Okay. I didn't do it. My husband and I didn't do it. We had this flood in 2016. One of my past clients, his whole house was under a lot of water. Him and his family needed a home. We just so happened to have a vacant home. It needed a lot of upkeep because we had a bad renter before that. We hadn't actually cleaned the house yet. So my husband went and cleaned the house, and we did not overcharge him during that time. We charged exactly what we charged the previous renter. We didn't even ask for a deposit or down payment because, first of all, it's just a crappy thing to do. He just lost everything. He just had him and his kids, and that water rolled in an area that was not prone to floods in the middle of the night. People were rescuing other people on their own personal boats so that people didn't drown. And now I'm going to tell him, oh, you know what? It used to be $1,300, but I'm going to charge you $2,000. I mean, I couldn't sleep at night. What kind of person does that? Whether that is capitalism or not, it's awful. And by the way, in the state of California, if you charge over 10% more than what it was prior to a natural disaster, you are in trouble. They can screenshot it. They can send it to the state of California, and you are going to get fined. You cannot do that. It is price gouging. Just saying. Not all states have that, but you can't do it in the state of California. Just saying. Alex says, question, what insurance factors make homeowners cash out and sell their property versus rebuild? I don't, you know what? I think it's a personal thing. We had a tornado. I mean, we've had pretty much everything happen to us. We had a tornado that ripped through our old neighborhood here in Louisiana, and the front house got the most damage. And then every house after that was, just minor damage. I didn't think, like, the house to me was still rebuildable. They still had brick. Mostly what had happened was the top part of the roof had been actually removed, basically picked up and moved into a cow pasture behind us. So all of their roof, but everything else was still there. Like, even some of the ceiling fans were still stuck into the drywall. But the insurance company said it was a total loss. Somebody else bought it. They rebuilt it. It can get insured. That is up to the individual owner. If it was me and I lived in an area that had been decimated, where there is no more infrastructure in that area, there is no way that I would stay. I mean, I'm a nomad, though. I have no problem leaving. That is an individual that's an individual thing. It's up to you, your insurance company, and how you feel about rebuilding. The process is going to be long. And if you happen to be a person that's in their 80s who's lived in your house since that was your very first house, do you think you have the time and patience that it takes to rebuild, right? You're in your 80s. If it was me, I would just go ahead, get my check from my insurance company, sell the land itself, and find myself a condo. But that's if I was older. But if I was younger, maybe I would have the gumption to want to rebuild. I don't know. I just don't know. Louisiana has lost 84,000 residents since 2020. Do you think this will affect the housing market for the state? It depends on the area. We've all seen in our area ups and downs, ebbs and flows. New Orleans, they said after Katrina would never come back, blah, blah, blah. You know, it's all over the news, never going to come back. It's come back. Some areas haven't. Some residents will never go back. Prices will go up and then they'll come down again, and people do adjust. I just can't see it going anywhere. But Louisiana has always been a state that kids are raised here, they go to college here, and they leave. They've tried many programs to keep people here in the state of Louisiana, especially kids that have grown up here, but it hasn't been successful bringing in new people to move in here and stay. Question: what area is safe? That is a good question. That is a very good question. And there is not a place on the whole United States map that is less prone to something, whether that's a blizzard, a tornado. I remember a friend of mine who lives in Bucks County, Pennsylvania, and she heard that a hurricane was coming through, and she's like, I could never live anywhere where there was just hurricanes happening all the time. I'm like, anything can happen at any time, always. You know, she's like, well, nothing ever happens here. And sure enough, a tornado went through Bucks County. Now, I'm not saying like she deserved that or anything like that, not even close, but it was just kind of one of those things like I just said that, and then a tornado gone through there. I was like, wow, anything can happen at any time. A fire doesn't necessarily mean that it has to be a wildfire. You know, people have had these like motorized scooters in their yard, in their garage, charging up for their kids, and the freaking lithium battery blows up. And, you know, that process for that person rebuilding their house is no different than a company or a neighborhood losing all their houses. Actually, it's probably going to take them twice as long, the people that have had their whole neighborhood, has to be rebuilt than the individual person. But it still takes forever. It takes forever to rebuild your house after a tragedy, every single time. Doesn't matter if it's just one person affected or several people affected. The only plus to having it be several people, like a hurricane, is that like a bunch of roofers will come into the area and repair roofs. There's a bunch of contractors that will come in to fix and repair things, but that's also opening up yourself to a lot more scams and scam contractors. Like if you have never been through it, you would never know how sick people can be. Like you just don't. The older I get, the more I realize I just thought there were a lot more good in the world, and it just feels like there's not as much good as there used to be. And I could be wrong about that, and maybe it's the content I consume, and maybe it's because of the experience that I've been through in the last like 20 years. But it's shocking to me still to this day how evil some people can be with a smile on their face.
Can I also say that I know before you had spoken about State Farm. Can I show you the list of insurance companies that pulled fire insurance from California?
Right. Yeah. Because it wasn't just State Farm. Eddie pulled this list up earlier, right before the stream started. Go ahead, Eddie. And like there was this rumor going around that they pulled it like 2 weeks before. It wasn't that they pulled it 2 weeks before. So Allstate, American National, AmGuard, Chubb. I never heard of that one. That was a new one to me. Oh, maybe that's the name of an app.
Now, some
Yeah.
of them have paused, so not all of them. Like I know Allstate stopped for new homeowners.
Right, right. And and that happens like here, US uh USDA, or no, the one that's for veterans. That one was paused. You can't get it here. Yeah, I said Allstate, insurance giant Allstate. Yeah, I got that one. American National, AmGuard, and go past Chubb. I think that's an app. Falls Lake Insurance, Farmers Insurance, Nationwide, again, State Farm. Yep, they're not the only ones. The Hartford, they're out of Connecticut, by the way. All right, Travelers, Trans-Pacific Insurance Company, and I guess that's it. Yeah, and like, so here in the state of Louisiana, like State Farm, all these people made the insurance incredibly expensive. And now, like, we're covered under something, I think it's called Cajun underwriting, and they've been writing everybody's policies. But at some point, like, what do people do when there is no policies available? Like, this is happening in Florida. There's no policies available. So you have to get what they have is their state insurance, their state covered insurance. And it's pitiful because it's not meant to cover everybody. It's like it was a temporary thing that was put in place in case, something happened with your insurance company. Well, now people are like, that's the only choice they have. And it's super expensive and they don't cover that much. Some insurance policies that have come out, they say, like in my area, we'll go ahead and cover your house, but we're not going to cover it for wind or hurricanes. What the hell? Like, who's going to take that? Sure, it's really inexpensive, but I mean, what if a tornado is spun off from the hurricane and the hurricane isn't what caused the damage, but the tornado spun off from the hurricane? Is the insurance company going to cover that now? We don't know. We don't know. Like, they're playing a game now. They're playing a game on how can they still milk money out of you and still not have to pay out. And they know that you're in a situation where you have to get coverage. So it's kind of like, what do you do? What do you do at that point? Because of climate change, I will never leave Michigan. I'm a big fan of the cold. I don't know if you guys know that. I have my heater fan on over here and it's like blasting hot now. I would love to live somewhere cold. I find that like those areas like Pennsylvania, Ohio, North Dakota, South Dakota, you don't hear about many of that going on, not many natural disasters. It's cold there. That's why you don't hear about it as much. I don't think they have much of a population, so it doesn't cause as many natural disasters. You have more people living in a concentrated area near the Gulf. It's going to cause more damage. More people are going to be affected. There's more infrastructure that needs to be rebuilt. It costs more money. So, insurance companies are going to end up forcing people to move more inland, and that real estate becomes like worthless? Is that what happens? Time will tell. I don't know. Charlton says, question, will listing agents have to rate house area by climate change rating in the near future? That's a good question. I don't know. Like, there is no specific rating. I know for if you were to buy a manufactured, what some people call mobile homes, they have a wind rating, and that you can pull up the map. It says the wind rating is a 1, 2, or 3. And that depends. That will mean what kind of like infrastructure they basically put into the manufactured house itself and how they strap down that house for that specific wind. Like, you can't have a house that's built for a 1 in a wind zone 3 or vice versa kind of thing. It has to be for that specific area. Now, you can get one that's stronger for a less, you can get a stronger house for an area that has less of a wind rating. You can do that, but it doesn't necessarily mean your insurance is going to go down any cheaper. That's for sure. Kristina is a dark person. Turquoise riding headphones. Yeah. Overjoyed says, does insurance cover your rent while you rebuild? I doubt they spend mortgage payments during that time. Okay, so when you have a tragedy to your house, your mortgage payments do not stop. They do not stop. You actually still have to pay your mortgage payments when you have a tragedy. I know it seems crazy, but the mortgage company is not the insurance company. The mortgage company is expecting that payment to be, paid every single month, right when it's due. The insurance company, that depends on your policy, if they're going to pay your rent or not. Some insurance policies, just like medical, are better than others. They will cover lodging up to X amount of days or X amount of months. Sometimes, it depends on what you decided as far as coverage is concerned. What most people don't know when it comes to flood policies is that you can get a flood policy, but that doesn't mean it covers the contents. And I don't know how many people didn't know that here in Louisiana. 2016 was a big eye opener because they thought they were covered. And when they called, they were like, this is what happened. They were like, we don't care about that. We just care about the structure. We only cover this because you didn't get contents. You didn't get the contents insurance. And then people that were in a very low risk area, they were just having that insurance for peace of mind. Luckily, they had it, but again, it didn't have contents. And you think about all the things that you buy, because even pots and pans and all this stuff. Once they've like water has intruded in your house, the mold takes no time to start growing. And of course, you can treat the whole entire house for mold, but to get it out of clothes and other structures, you can't get it out of the insulation. All that stuff needs to be replaced. You cannot clean a couch and expect it to be good. I mean, everything just needs to be thrown away. So all your good pictures, there's people that have tried to salvage those things, and sure enough, 4 months later, they're just covered in mold and they're ruined. All that stuff is ruined. So there's some memories and some things you'll never get back, whether you have contents or not. But make sure this is a good reminder to all of us, no matter what your situation is, to go over and look at your homeowners insurance policies and see what they do cover. But just because you've had a tragedy, that mortgage company is expecting you to pay and pay on time. Chubb is a real insurance, generally for very wealthy people. I've done IT work for them. Oh, okay. Interesting. That's an interesting name for an insurance company, I must say. Truth Teller says, I never realized there were so many greedy, evil people out there and corrupt entities. Yeah, entities. It seems like everything has been corrupt, every single thing. I feel like that some days. So, I mean, and I'm talking to you guys as a person living in this world. Some days I'm like, if I was to turn on the news and they said an asteroid was heading right for us, I'd be like, all right, let me go ahead, and I quit drinking, but today might be the day I just drink a cold beer on the back porch. Like I would not be scrambling. I would not, be freaking out. I would just be like, oh, well, it is what it is. I've said this so many times. I'm so tired. I'm so exhausted from living in unprecedented times. I am so tired and exhausted from people running their mouth about things they have no idea about and acting like an expert, and acting like an expert loudly and being so completely wrong. I'm tired of people that we've elected, whether it's one side or the other, saying what they need to say just to get elected and never doing a thing that they promise. Not a thing. They always blame the other side that they can't get done, which is total baloney. I'll just leave it at that. Insurance companies will align themselves with the New World Order idea. You will own nothing and be happy. And we will rent, and corporations will be the slumlords. That is a running theory, and it does feel like that, because even to this day, when you talk about corporate entities buying up single family houses, there are many people, even people in my own industry of real estate, that have their real estate license that will say that we have vilified corporations from buying single family homes, that they really don't own that many houses, according to them. according to them. And to think that they do is just silly and fear mongering. I've heard this on this particular live stream. I had a real estate agent say that to me. So it used to be that corporations would buy about 1% of houses during a year. Then that number went up to 2%. In some areas, at one time in Atlanta, 42% of the homes that were bought by corporations and LLCs. They have bought areas where they basically own the neighborhood. They own it. Whether that's under 3 different shell companies, they own them, a good portion of them. And if they happen to be in your neighborhood, that means they own your HOA too. And they can make those HOA rules whatever they want to basically force you out of them. HOAs being another type of insurance for some people that have gotten way out of hand and out of control. I do feel like there is a push for that own nothing and be happy renting society. They really want kids to feel like they'll never be able to afford the house ever, and that you must rent from them. And everything always looks like utopia at the beginning when they start with this privatized housing. That's what they'll be. Oh, we're just privatizing it. It's going to be easier for the kids. That way they can get a new house whenever they want to. And then they don't have to be tied down to a mortgage payment. That's how they're going to sell it. And they've already tried that. And then sure enough, you're going to see 20 years from now, all of these neighborhoods and all these houses they were supposed to maintain are going to look like hell. And they're not going to take care of them. And these people are going to be in a worse shape. Privatizing things does not work. Jacqueline says, also add Progressive. They sent me a non-renewal in December. And they also raised my premium last year before by $500 or more. Well, I had Progressive and they doubled it. They doubled my insurance, doubled it. So that's why I don't have a Progressive anymore. Yep. Nationwide is no longer on our side. That is true, SB. USSA. That's it. That was, USSA. Yep. USAA is a very good insurance company. I was telling you about that tornado earlier that we hit our neighborhood. My neighbor next door had that. And within, hours after the tornado, somebody was knocking on his door, giving him a check for food that was lost because we had no electricity. They had already given him grocery money to replace the food that they lost in their refrigerators. They were the first one, weeks before everybody else, that got a new roof because of the tornado that had run through. They are excellent. So guess that's who I sent my dad to. That's who my dad has now. And they're not the cheapest in our area, but they are the best coverage. They are. Yep. Kings in the City, the first says Pennsylvania is the best Commonwealth in the Union. I'm not going to argue with that. Connecticut has no natural disasters. Plenty of land in the northeast of Connecticut, but it does get cold. Yeah, I used to live in Massachusetts, so I get cold. I understand that. MH08 says my policy covers rent for a year. Yeah, some of them do. Some of them are only like weeks. Because like I said, after the floods, I saw lots of people that went through their insurance company and they only had like 3 months. And then another person, they were like, yeah, we only got 3 weeks. And if you happen to be renting, by the way, if you're a renter or anybody you know, even if it's your kids or whatever, if they're renting a room or an apartment or whatever, tell them to get renter's insurance. It's very affordable, by the way. Tell them to get renter's insurance and make sure it covers all the contents for for that house, because you never know what's going to happen in an apartment complex either. You think about all those people in California that live in an apartment. Those are all gone, some of them, and if you don't have renter's insurance, you have to start from scratch. And yeah, USAA pays for a rental no matter how long it takes to rebuild. The rebuild takes. See, USAA, that is the one. Sarah Mason, actually her name. John says this reeks of private equity firms swooping in and buying distressed properties. And as well as I do, how many private equity firms are going to try to scoop in and try to take up as much of that land that people are selling, right? Think about all the people that live in Hawaii, right? those people, the embers were still warm, and they had companies calling them and knocking on their door like, oh, did you evacuate from the fire? Did you lose your house? I'd love to buy the land from you. They're like wolves, like sitting there just licking their lips, waiting for all of this to happen so they can buy the land and do their reckoning on it. That's what they do. It's gross. It's gross. Oh, we have a call, by the way. If you guys don't know, I have a toll-free number. It's 888-255-0197. That's 888-255-0197. You can talk to the AI Kristina, who is a mean, very rude AI robot, but you can leave your question for the live stream. So whenever you call in, you leave a message on that answering service. I take that question and then I put it on the live stream just like this. Eddie, can you go ahead and put the call on the screen for me, please? If Eddie's around, there we go.
Is there a bill proposed to take away the FHA?
So that was UJ. He asked if there is a bill being proposed to remove the FHA. All right. So this rumor had gone around on Instagram. I saw it on Facebook. I also saw it on TikTok. I didn't see it on YouTube, but basically they were saying that they were going to get rid of the FHA. And I know where the confusion comes in. Eddie, if you could put up that first article, because this was right during the presidential campaign, when everybody was spewing what they thought. There was a proposal to privatize Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. This has not happened yet, by the way. It's just a proposal. So this is what, everybody was talking about, the costs, blah, 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 blah. And in with his cabinet that he has, he's putting in place, there is a proposed idea to privatize Fannie and Freddie, Fannie Mae, right? Freddie and Fannie. That's what they were planning on doing. It has not happened yet. Who knows what's going to happen with that? But that does not affect FHA mortgages at this time. They're not the same entity. So FHA, as far as I know, it's not on the chopping block that I'm aware of. But is proposed, doesn't mean it's going to happen. There's no bills out there. It's just what they have said in their campaign promises, that it was something they were looking at, which was to privatize Fannie and Freddie. Yep. If Donald Trump wins the presidential election, see, this is an old article. Republicans hope he will fulfill a longstanding GOP goal of privatizing mortgage giants Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, which has been under government control since the Great Recession. Because privatization has always been a really good idea when it comes to things that they've been under control. It's not really good for their profits. It may be good for us as our consumers. But they always say, well, the thing is that, if you privatize it, it allows for more competition. No, it doesn't. Because what happens is the big giants, right, end up monopolizing everything. And then everything that was really cheap is now really expensive. Let's just look at healthcare. Anyway, physics hypernova says pretty much been an unprecedented time since 9/11, if you think about it. Yeah, but they've been ramping up, right? So it's like, you think to yourself, because my brother lived in New York at that time, you think to yourself, wow, that was terrible. I can't, I'm going to be talking to my kids about this, for years and years and years. And then I think about what my kids have seen since they've grown up. And I didn't grow up in that. I wish, when I was growing up, I saw the Great Berlin Wall come down, and I saw so much hope of what could be, so much hope and promise. And my kids, everything has been unprecedented events, all these things. My daughter didn't even get to walk for her graduation from high school because of the pandemic. All these milestones in her life have been disrupted by unprecedented times. And they always say, oh, the population's going down. What opportunities and what hope have you given generations like my daughter, even ones younger than that makes them feel like, you know what, I can't wait to start a family and buy a house and live the American dream. It's not feeling like that. So why would people want to participate in society like that? I'm not saying like I wouldn't be highly disappointed if my kids didn't have kids. Like I want to have grandkids. But I can see why, when you've lived through nothing but unprecedented times from the time you've been born, why it would feel like, I don't know if I want to participate that way. I don't know if I want to raise a family in even more chaos. I get it. Yeah. Preach it, sister. Sarah Mason says, preach it, sister. It's United Corporations of America. You know, even in the 90s, I've been listening to a lot of 90s grunge, and I think it warned us about it warned us a lot about that. I was listening to I don't know if back in my day, I used to listen to Temple of the Dog. You remember them? And I was listening to that I'm Going Hungry song, and I was listening to the words like really, and I did then, but it didn't affect me. I like cried. I cried recently. I'm like, oh my God, Eddie Vedder's been telling us this for years and we didn't listen. We just thought it was a cool grunge song. Damn. Yeah, you ain't seen nothing yet. I mean, and I'm so like, that's what I'm saying. If like a meteorite comes tomorrow, like, we're all going to get crashed tomorrow. That's why it was so unaffected. They're like, there's aliens in the ocean. I'm like, who cares? I don't care. None of it. I don't care. If they're going to do something, just do it already. Because I'm kind of done. I'm so tired. And I'm not the only one. I'm really exhausted. When people say, did you hear? I'm like, I don't even want to hear it. I don't even care anymore. Like, I just need to make sure that I get food on the table for my family. Make sure that they're fed, warm, and taken care of. And then everything happens beyond that. It's so out of my control. I can't handle it anymore. It's just too much to take because I can't do anything about it. There's nothing I could do. Yep. Charlton says DOJ has filed an antitrust against rent control price fixing companies. Like speaking of price fixing, those private equity firms in a bunch of cities got in trouble because it needs to have a competitive attitude, right? And they were doing price fixing of rents in areas. So they all joined the same app, basically, that was showing them how much rents are in the area, like how much a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house was in the area. And the app was saying, okay, and to continue to get our graphs and usage of our app, you're going to have to set the price at this level with all the other competitors in the area. And all those private equity firms are like, okay. So it didn't matter. There was no competition. Everybody's rent was the exact same price. And they got busted, stone cold busted. I think they were busted in Chicago and a few other cities as well. But just like everything, though, like every time they get busted, everything's a slap on the wrist. Nothing ever really happens. Everybody's like, ooh, you're going to get in trouble. You don't. No, they don't. They don't get in trouble. Nobody gets in trouble. They have a bunch of fancy lawyers, and then they go to courts, and everybody makes their pictures in the paper, and they make it sound like something's going to happen. And then sure enough, 3 years later, nothing happens. Not nothing. Nothing ever happens. Brian says, when I was renting, I always got renter's insurance. Yeah, I did too. Yeah, I actually even got renter's flood insurance too, which most people don't think about. But I was kind of thinking at the time I was renting our first apartment, I'm like, what if the apartment upstairs starts leaking into my apartment? Is the apartment complex going to cover that, or am I going to need flood insurance? So I went up to the front office and they were like, well, it depends. So if it depends, I'm not going to trust what other people are saying. I'm going to go ahead and get some kind of coverage. So somebody will pay something at some point. Who's on first said, Chris Rock. Who's on first said, Chris Rock, if poor people knew how rich people live, there would be a revolution tomorrow. Do you know that the economic divide right now here in the United States, where the cost of living at the median price is about $14,000 off, that the median price for homes, living, insurance, everything, just your daily food, all those costs averaged together, that the median price is actually the median income is actually $14,000 short. $14,000 short. The last time that happened in history, happened in history was in the 20s, right before the stock market went kaput. Interesting, right? Interesting stuff. I had to take a little swig. Carl says, when there's blood in streets by, Malibu land values are going to skyrocket. Malibu skyrocketing, like all parts of California. I actually have a friend who lives in the area that was affected. And luckily for him, his home was not affected and his children's school was not affected. But all the school teachers that teach in that school, they all lost their homes, every single one of them. And there is no grocery stores around there. All the businesses are no longer there. His home is there, but what do you do from there? Like, what do you do? They probably could sell their house for a pretty penny because it's still standing in the area, but I would not want to live in an area there's no infrastructure for anything. And then not only that, for the next several years, you're going to be hearing nothing but construction for the next like 5 years everywhere. It takes so long. And I'm not a real estate agent in California. I'm not licensed in California, but I'm very aware of the permitting process in California and how rigorous that is and how long it takes to get things approved, plans approved. I mean, we're talking, this is going to take forever for them to get this straight. Forever. The state of California has a class action lawsuit against USAA too for how they were delaying and denying claims. Oh, that's interesting. Ooh, that's super interesting. I did not know that. They've been good to us. Here in Louisiana, USAA has been very good to us. I can honestly say I don't have any complaints against them here. That doesn't mean that they're not run completely different in California. It's something that you guys should look into, especially if you are in the military. Just find out how much their coverage is and find out from other people in the area if they've had a good experience with them. Who's on first says, question. There are many homes owned by large corporations, but how many investors own 5, 10 or less homes that are not Blackstone? Well, actually, this is what the corporate investors always say, that the problem isn't them. They're not the issue when it comes to not having enough homes available. They say that the small time investor is the biggest problem, that they own more houses than, let's just say, Blackstone. And I literally want to laugh out loud, because you're going to tell me that the guy who has been supplementing his income with 5 rental properties is the real problem when you own 50 properties in one neighborhood. You're not the problem, Mr. Corporation dude. It's the guy who owns 5 houses that, like, that's how his retirement's being paid. Come on. But that's how they vilify you. There was an article on Vice that was talking about this. And then they were like, the real problem is not the institutional investors. It's the small time investors, because they own more real estate and they're the big problem. I'm like, shut up, dude. Come on. Grandma and grandpa that has the house next door renting it to some family members is not the problem. Give me a break. Yeah. Eddie Vedder, Jeremy spoke in class today. I was talking about that. I don't think the song's called "I'm Going Hungry," but that's the hook. He always sounded like he was yodeling to me. I don't mind stealing bread. He was always like, when he sings, he's like this too. There he is. He looks a little constipated, like he's trying to hold his butt cheeks together while he sings. Incredible artist. Totally off the subject of real estate, but dude, Eddie Vedder was the king. He's still around. Yeah. Van Vedder says the Simpsons is telling all in the cartoon. Yeah, they do predict a lot of stuff. If you guys don't watch the Simpsons, they always talk about all the things they predict. Carl says, I don't mind stealing bread for the mouths of decadence. Yep, that's him. So dear bread. Yeah, I know. Chris Cardell. SW says he totally agree with you, Kristina. Thank you. I didn't know how this was going to go. I don't think that this system of insurance has been working for the people in a long time. And I realize that a company needs to make money in order to keep operating. I also would like to say, and this is where I know I piss people off, is that your company, your for-profit company, has been paying CEOs ridiculous bonuses for years, when it could have gone back to the company. When you're paying somebody $10 million as your standard salary, is it really beneficial to the company itself to pay that same CEO $25 million or $21 million as a bonus on top of it? Like, do they like, what about their job is making them that much money? What is it that they did to their customers to earn that bonus? It makes no sense in my brain when people have been paying and paying and paying and paying and paying and paying, never filing a premium for their house ever in their lifetimes, to get canceled all of a sudden. I don't think that is fair to that old couple who are near retirement now, that are scrambling and are scared because they don't have fire coverage, because the insurance company no longer wants to cover their house. They will cancel you now on all sorts of crap. They will literally take drones and say, we saw mold on your roof, and so now we think that your roof shouldn't be covered. We have a 30-year roof on our house. At 10 years, they said, you need to get a new roof. It's a 30-year roof. Why do I need to get a brand new roof when it's only 10 years old? What happened? Like, what's going on? And it isn't just California. It isn't just Hawaii. It isn't just Louisiana. It's happening across the United States. These insurance companies are finding all sorts of ways to drop as many people as possible. The only ones they want to cover are the brand new houses. So frustrating. So frustrating. They do. They take drones up in the air. They take pictures of people's roofs, and they'll say, we discovered damage. This one guy had a fishing boat behind his house, And they said that it was like too much debris in the backyard, and they canceled his policy for a fishing boat. What? That they're not required to cover you. I understand that. They can cancel you at any time. But why is it that we get to pay all this time? We pay for all these years, and they can drop you at a dime without any warning. Why aren't we given warning? We should be given warning that you're in a risk area. It's likely that we're going to be pulling out of this area. You may want to look for new coverage. That would be the kind thing to do, instead of being like, sorry, not going to renew. Good luck to you. Peace out. As a Jesus follower, I admit to compassion fatigue, but I don't want to be overcome and give in. I'm still good to people out in my regular day society. I feel like a lot of times social media has poisoned the well when it comes to interactions with human beings. I find that people are, with the vitriol that they use on social media websites, is disgusting. I've never heard people use the words, verbiage, or speak in real life like they do on social media posts. Everybody gets a little braver when they're behind a keyboard. But in my everyday life, of course, I will always help my fellow man. Eddie and I, we've done our fair share of helping the community after a major tragedy. That is for sure. With everybody kept asking us, what organization are you with? Who are you with? Why are you doing this? I'm like, we're not with anybody. We're just a neighbor. We don't work for a corporation. We don't work for an affiliation. We were just out there helping as many people as possible. I think that year, Eddie, how much did you put on your truck when you were helping everybody? Like 60,000 miles in 1 year, just because he was running around helping people to help rebuild.
Correct.
Yeah, 60,000 miles in a year. just by running around the state trying to help people rebuild after that flood. It was awful. It was awful. Nobody knows how bad it really was because it wasn't a named storm. It just came out of nowhere. Top of the state, rained for days and days and days, came down all those canals, and people were flooded overnight. No one ever even knew. It was a beautiful sunny day outside, not a cloud in the sky. And all of a sudden the water just, it's crazy. And then it came in even more in the middle of the night. Yep. And those insurance companies raked people through the coals for the longest time in order to pay out what was due to people. Like what was due to them, what they had paid for. It was a struggle to get them to pay for what they were supposed to pay for in the first place. Carl says, it will take about 5 years to get back to normal-ish, but if they're uber rich, so things will happen fast. They will grease the wheels as needed. That's not true of everybody, though. That's the big misnomer. There's plenty of people in that area that have lived in those houses way before it got super expensive. Some of those houses, just like here in Louisiana, have been passed down. You know, this was my grandma's house. My parents lived here. We grew up here, and now I was able to purchase this house, and now it's gone. You know, that happens. Not everybody living there is like a celebrity, super rich. Some people were just living there, you know, and it's going to take the people that are mega wealthy. Yeah, they're going to get it done and get it done a lot faster because they have more resources, and more money provides more resources. But 5 years ish, it sounds about right, where it starts being more normal ish. That's what happened here after Katrina. It was more normal-ish after 5 years, but you could still see the telltale signs of what had happened. To this day, this is no joke, to this day, you can still go in certain parts of New Orleans and see the X on the wall that showed that, like, how many people were in the house, and like if they went through it again. You can still see homes that were devastated by flooding from Katrina. Wild, right? Wild. Charlton says, corrupt mom and pop landlords are evil. Really? Well, anybody can be evil. I mean, anybody. But if a landlord is corrupt and owns one property, it doesn't feel as terrible as a corporation that owns 75,000 homes, and they're evil, and they're not doing what they're supposed to do, and they're price gouging people, and they're not fixing things. That feels a lot more icky than the mom and pop landlord. In my opinion, I could be wrong about that. Debbie Brady says Bruce Springsteen has been singing about it for a couple decades. Plenty of others going back at least 100 years have sung about the plight and the less fortunate. Yeah. I mean, I guess I haven't listened to music in years. And it was a reminder. I was perusing the Tiki-Talkie. It was a reminder of the lyrics of songs, and I was like, man, we've been hearing about this forever. It's much more prevalent now, affecting so many more people now than it ever has been. The systems that were put into place that we felt comfortable in protecting us are falling apart. Insurance companies just happen to be one of those things. And it's so glaringly obvious now when you see more and more of these tragedies hitting all of us. I mean, if you look back, somebody mentioned 9/11. And I'm like, well, at least we have this. And then you see someone pulls back the curtain on that, and you're like, oh, well, that's corrupt. And you're like, well, at least this person's protecting us. And you're like, oh, well, that person's corrupt. And then everything feels like a scam at this point. All these things that have been put in place that you felt like were the protections were obviously a smokescreen that we never knew. But once you really needed it, it ended up being smoke and mirrors, a lie. I want to say horse, you know what, but I can't. I don't want to get demonetized. I need this check, man. Carl says insurance doesn't ever want to pay out anything. Their game is to take your money, invest it for themselves, and then not pay back when you need it. But that wasn't what it was designed for, was it? You know? Insurance was supposed to be that thing for peace of mind. That's what all the advertising had told you, right? It was all those things they had said, like Frank should have had home insurance. If he had homeowners insurance, he could have had all that covered, peace of mind with insurance. They sold us this for years. And then when we really need it, they're like, sorry, we didn't mitigate the risk long enough over the last 25 years. So now you're going to be paying out the nose. Something doesn't feel right. Just like auto insurance, medical systems, it all feels like a scam. It does. It does seem like a scam. Smallhorns, y'all rock. Eddie rocks. I just roll. Eddie rocks, I roll. It's good teamwork. Jay Tan says, remember how Kristina was talking about how companies are using the algorithm to get highest rents? Well, guess what? Someone is getting sued out of their greedy practices. We'll see what happens, though. Like that is true. I've been talking about this for quite some time, about how these algorithms were adjusting rents to make sure that they basically price fixed rents in the area, making them incredibly high. Happened a lot during the pandemic, and that's when they got busted. They're getting sued, but what does that really mean? Who's going to win out of this? Do you know who wins out of getting sued? Most likely the lawyers, the attorneys win on that one. It isn't, it's much like the real estate commissions thing that went through. Not much changed in real estate. And the ones who got the most money weren't the people that actually filed the lawsuit, not the sellers that wanted to get compensated. It was the attorneys. The attorneys made the most money out of that. So wild, right? Somebody said the pandemic really opened the barn door for unprecedented. Yeah, it really did. It really did. The insurance companies is just one candle in the cake of just, some days I just go, what? WTF? Like the WTF cake. Just another candle. Hey, Rick, how's it going? So, everybody, I know that we're going through this insurance crisis. I don't know the answer to this insurance crisis. I want to know what your solutions are. I'm not smart enough to figure this out. I'm just not. I want an open conversation with you guys on what you think would be the answer to fix this problem. This will be published. I will leave it on my channel, and I would love to look at your responses, and you can make them as long as you want here on YouTube, in the comments section of this video. After this is published, go ahead and put in that comment section. There's no character limit. So give me your ideas on how to fix this insurance crisis. One thing I will say, one fix I believe that will fix some of the problems to mitigate the issues in the future is when you go through the rebuild process, they need to allow for people to build stronger homes. You can't put they have like these restrictions in a lot of areas that say you can't build with certain building materials because it ruins the aesthetic of the neighborhood. At this point, like the aesthetics out the window, we need strength. And if you want to continue to live there and you want insurance companies to be able to stay there, build stronger homes, build smarter homes for the area that you live, like here in Louisiana. If I had to rebuild it, I'd put this house on stilts in a heartbeat. But of course, the neighborhood wouldn't allow me to do that. I would do it though. I mean, like, I think that's one way to mitigate the issue, even with the insurance companies. But you let me know what your solutions are. If you want to leave a voicemail question for me next week's show, make sure you call the AI Kristina, who's kind of mean. It's 888-255-0197. That is 888-255-0197. Leave a message for her. She will interrupt you if you talk a little too slow or you it sounds like you ended a sentence. She'll try to talk over you. Just talk over her. She's rude. She's super rude. But I will get your question on the screen for next week. If you want to discuss insurance or anything about real estate, that's fine by me. We will talk anything you want to talk about. If you want to share this podcast with somebody, especially somebody in the insurance industry, and you can go to anywhere you listen to podcasts and look up Kristina Smallhorn, Real Estate for Everyone. And today's live stream will be on all the podcast sites you can just go over there and share it with them there. If you don't mind, they ask for a rating, give me a little 5 stars, a little thumbs up. Eddie told me to tell everybody that. If you need to get a hold of me in the future, or you're just looking for a real estate agent in your area, I'm not connected with insurance agents, by the way, only real estate agents. You can go to my website, click on the pink button, fill it out, leave your phone number, and I will get back to you at my earliest convenience. Just go ahead and fill out that form. Thank you, everybody. This is a enlightening conversation. I did a lot of ranting, but I'm very passionate on the fact that housing hasn't become affordable. It's becoming less affordable. And I do believe it is by design. But I think if we work together to find different solutions to this problem, we can get it done. We can't depend on privatizing anything to make it happen. It's all going to come from us, and it's going to be a group mind thing to beat the machine. That's for sure. So I'd love to find out how you feel like you're going to beat the machine. So I hope everybody has a fantastic week. I look forward to hearing from all of you. Thanks so much. So long. Farewell. Bye.
Kristina signing off. This dream's about to close. Tiny homes, big dreams, the wisdom she bestows. Real estate queen, always keeping us in toes. Hustle on 1,000, every vibe she shows.